Welcome, scholars, to lesson 4.3, triangle congruence criteria. So there are 5 methods to prove that triangles are congruent. And just to remind you, congruent means that the triangles are essentially the same, right? They're equal to each other, meaning all of the angles are equal and all of the sides are equal. So if all 3 sides, all 3 angles are congruent or equal to each other, that means the whole triangle is congruent. Basically the same triangle. And so how do we prove this? Well, if we know a certain piece of information, we can prove that it's congruent. We don't need to know all 3 sides and all 3 angles. We can just use actually 3 pieces of information. It's the combination of them that really prove it's congruent. So let's look at the first combination. So side, angle, side. That means that 2 sides and the included angle are congruent. See in this first one, the side here and the angle here and the side here, these are all congruent to the side, angle, and side over here. So if I have side, angle, side that are congruent, that means my whole triangle is congruent. My next one is side, side, side. So again, side, 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 side. See how these sides are congruent, right? That means the whole triangle is congruent. Hypotenuse leg is the other one, HL. That's only for right triangles though, so they have to have that right angle there. And so our hypotenuse, which is that side across from the right angles, that would be like BC, and that would be EF. As long as our hypotenuse and one of the legs, so in this case AB and DE, as long as those are congruent, that means the whole triangle or both triangles are congruent to each other. So before I scroll down, just to recap, side, angle, side means that I have a side and then an angle that's in between the 2 sides. As long as those are congruent, like as long as BA is congruent to ED, and as long as A is congruent to D, and as long as AC is congruent to DF right here, side, angle, side proves that they are congruent. Same thing with side, 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 as long as those sides are congruent, and as long as I have the hypotenuse and a leg, one of the legs, as long as they're congruent to each other, I know that the whole, or I keep saying the whole, both triangles are congruent to each other. That's only 3 of the 5. Let's scroll down. Then we also have angle, side, angle. So angle, side, angle. So if I have 2 angles and the side in between them, then I can prove congruency. Angle, side, angle, like that. Angle, side, angle, as long as those are congruent. And I say those are congruent. That means as long as angle A is congruent to angle D, side AB is congruent to DE, and angle B is congruent to E, then both triangles are congruent. And then I have angle, angle, side. So I have angle, angle, side. Actually, let's start over here. Angle, angle, side, like that. Angle, angle, side. So 2 angles and a non-included side would be congruent. Then the whole, when I say the whole, oh my goodness, the whole thing. When I say the whole thing, I hope you guys know what I mean. Both triangles are congruent. And it says also, note that SSA, which could also be ASS, I just didn't want to type that out, and AAA are not in this list because they do not prove congruency. So all we have to know for this lesson are just basically which one of these it is. And we just have to know that if it's SAS, SSS, HL, ASA, or AAS, that it's going to be congruent, and then SSA and AAA are not going to be. So you're really just going to need to I just zoomed out. You're going to really need to look at this sheet when you do your practice problems. That's really going to help, because I know it is kind of confusing to have all 5 at once. Just keep referring to your notes as you do the practice problems, because really it's just about looking at it. All right, so let's look at examples 1 through 4. So it says determine the relationship between the 2 triangles and whether or not they can be proven to be congruent. So let's look at example 1. So let's just make sure I can write. No, I cannot. There we go. All right, so example number 1. So I have a side, an angle, and a side, right? I have a side, an angle, and a side. So that would be SAS. That's it. SAS. That is it. They are congruent. Yes, they are congruent. Because, let's scroll back up. As long as I have a side, an angle, and a side that they're congruent to each other, both triangles, then the whole triangles, both of them are congruent. So, example number 2. If I have a right angle, that means I'm probably going to be using that hypotenuse leg, but let's just make sure. So I have a right triangle, and then, yep, the hypotenuse, those are congruent, and then the leg is congruent, right? So that means that would be hypotenuse leg. Yes, they are congruent. All right, again, let's scroll up to HL, see how they're both right triangles, and as long as the hypotenuse and the leg are congruent to each other, that means both triangles are congruent. All right, example number 3. So I have an angle, a side, and a side, right? Which would be, well, let's go side angle. That would be SSA. Can I prove congruency with SSA? It says no up here. So therefore, no. They are not congruent. Because SSA or ASS does not prove congruency. And so our last example number 4, we have an angle, a side, and an angle. An angle, a side, and angle. So look at that. Angle, side, angle. Does that prove congruency? Yes, it does. Angle, side, angle. 2 angles and the included side are congruent. So angle, side, angle. Yes. I think in Delta Math, it's going to ask you, is it congruent first? I'm just adding it at the end. Oops. So it really should be yes or no first, and then, well, which one is it? So again, you're just looking at it. You're really just comparing these to up here, right? Hopefully we get the hang of just, you just look at what it's giving you, and you have to, it's going to be one of these combinations, either SAS, SSS, HL, ASA, or AAS. Those would all be yes, or it's going to be SSA and AAA, and that would not be congruent. If you need help, I understand that this could be a little confusing because it's a lot of information, then just come and ask me for help, and I will help you do the practice. Trust me, once we do it, you will get the hang of it, I promise. So go ahead and try it, and good luck.